So, hi folks. Welcome to a new episode of Quarkus Insights. You have a totally different set of faces this week than you did last week. So we're trying to mix it up, keep things interesting. We have Pascal today with us, and he's going to talk about his experience, good and bad, hopefully mostly good, about how he's using Quarkus to build his cloud native applications. Dimitris and Steve, you want to share anything, any news or something before we get started?
Yeah, just a little carrot for people. Obviously, the World Tour continues. Obviously, we're just tracking those through. And as always, if anybody would like to be part of the World Tour, either us coming to your jug or you're interested in being part of the group that's running them, then let me know. The other thing is, because in a few countries, the breaks are coming off in terms of meetups and things, people are beginning to plan going to real conferences. So if you've got ideas about you want to submit a talk and there's a Quarkus related, then again, reach out to me or to even the World Tour email, wherever you can get to me, because we'd be interested in helping you maybe make it a little bit better, give you a t-shirt, something along those lines. But just let us know if you're planning to do something about Quarkus, and we'll see what we can do to help you. That's it.
Cool.
Excellent. World Tour continues. A lot of stops, right?
Yeah.
And we should remind the people that Quarkus 2 alphas are coming out regularly. So if you want to check what's coming and test it's working, actually it's working. So, we would appreciate any help, and the team is fully behind that. So
yeah. So I think we're having a new alpha this week, actually, sometime I think mid this week. So like more bug fixes and stuff. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. People have already started testing it. They're telling us like things are working and stuff like that. But yeah, obviously the more feedback we get, the better. So yeah. So Pascal, you want to tell us about yourself a little bit for our viewers?
Yep. So I will introduce myself and SoCube for a couple of minutes, I think. I got a big Java background since I was developer and technical architect. I use the G2E stack, the Spring Boot framework, and many others. And so now I'm working for SoCube, and we are a society with a big cloud background. We help our customers to migrate to cloud environments with Kubernetes, and some of our customers are using Swarm. So we need to have the application which match the best these environments. Sorry. And so in SoCube, we help our customers to do some migrations of applications, and we help them to select the most relevant framework for that. Just about the founders, maybe on SoCube, we've got two founders, Sébastien Semark and Yann Albou, which was DevOps engineer too, and so it's very important for them to let us the time to experiment some frameworks, some technologies, and that's why I wrote this post on January about Quarkus, and more generally about the difference between old stacks and new ones like Quarkus, but recently I integrate the Spring Boot native stack too in the comparison, and I will add Micronaut 2 during this month, I think. So, sorry.
Yeah, we should post the link to the blog entry of Pascal, right?
Yes.
And SoCube is based out of Geneva, right?
Yep. Sorry, I didn't tell that, but Yes, we are in Geneva. The society is from 2 years, I think, 2 years old. So 1 year, maybe. So it's recent.
I could recognize a few faces from the company as former Zabos users, right? You were Zabos users back when you guys were working at the banks, big banks in Geneva, right?
Yep, we work with Sébastien Sellar, Yann Albou, and other from SoCube. We came from Lombard Odier, which was the bank in Geneva. And so, why Quarkus? Why finally we want to have native build? Why finally we want a recent framework instead of Spring Boot, which was good until now, but
let me ask first one. So the way I understand it, you have experience from like way back to the Java EE years to Spring Boot to Quarkus, right? So you've seen like the whole path, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, I have the whole path, and I think Spring Boot have a lot of success because G2E was too much heavy for good development, and it wasn't iterative at all. And since then, developers prefer Spring Boot in the early 2010s. But for now, with cloud native applications and the 12 factors and the need to have a very, very, very good resource management in our apps, it is very important to understand that Spring Boot is just too heavy for now for CNA. I will demonstrate it through Spring Native 2. There's always Tomcat in. So it's huge in terms of resources.
Cool. Yeah, looking forward to seeing what you have in store for us.
Yep. So I will share my screen, and maybe I will begin by comparing simply the package.
Sorry, you're probably gonna have to make it a little bigger because it's probably a little too small as it is for our viewers.
Is
Yeah,
it better?
I think that's good. Yeah, I think that should be good.
Okay. So just about the app itself, it's a simple CRUD about one entity, which is a person which who have competencies and status, just if it's an employer or a candidate. So the service just there help us to generate some random employees, and we've got two REST controllers, one blocking, I didn't remove it, and one reactive that does something that we will talk about later. So about the packaging, if we concentrate us just on the jar, if I look at...
Actually, yeah, I think the code here is, I mean, the terminal is fine, but the code is a little small.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's great. Great, thank you.
So if I look at the generated jar, which is a Uber jar, of course, I can see it's approximately 30 mega. And if we look at the same app with Spring Boot, we are almost 60 megabytes. So twice the size. And we know that Quarkus is at build time is removing useless class for our running app. So I think the gap comes from there. And maybe with Spring Boot, what is convenient and not convenient at all is that when you pull Maven dependency in Spring Boot, you often pull the world. So it's
So this is for like the same application, right?
this is exactly the same application with the minimalistic dependency I can pull for it.
Wow,
So,
yeah, I didn't actually think that we'd be that much better even in this metric.
yeah.
That surprises me to be honest, that our jar is that much smaller. Cool.
So now I will not build just now the Docker image. I built it this morning because it takes a lot of time for Spring Boot native, especially. So I've got another project for Spring Boot native because there's 2 or 3 differences between the two. But just know that for building Spring Boot native application, I had to kill all process on my computer. It took 11 gigabytes of RAM when building GraalVM. So
Yeah, so
it was pretty hard. I think for the equivalent in Quarkus, we are all at 6 gigabytes. So
yeah, so basically, to put this into perspective, like GraalVM, like the amount of work it does is huge. So the more resources you can throw at it, the better, right? That's with Quarkus as well. Like the more RAM you can give it, the better. But the difference here is that because Quarkus does a lot of code generation at build time, it helps the GraalVM compiler to like be able to exclude all these various code paths and make the building so much faster and so much lighter. Well, lighter compared to Spring. You can't really call it a light process. But yeah, this just goes to show you that all this build time optimization has this kind of, let's say, effect as well.
But not just for the native case, right, George? The Java version
Well,
has
for the
less.
Java version, Spring doesn't do anything at build time, right? So all the slowdown on in the Spring case would be just for Maven, like Maven package. Well, the Spring boot a plugin does a few things, but very little. So when you're talking only Java, then Quarkus builds slower than Spring Boot, but only a few seconds, right? It doesn't really matter. But what Pascal is talking about here is like if you take it to GraalVM, then like what we're like half the time, Pascal, something like that.
yeah, I think
60%.
Yeah, I think it's twice for Spring Boot. And now if we look at the just for the Docker compilation, Spring Boot native is just a target of an experimental dependency because Spring Boot native is still in beta version. It will do all the job for you, but you don't have really control about it since it builds the minimal things to run. But like I said before, there's the embedded Tomcat in Spring Boot, and so the image will be heavier. I think we can see for employee Quarkus that I really do the smallest possible image using Scratch from a base image, and this is something I can't do actually with Spring Boot, since it have a lot of things with Tomcat, etc. And maybe if I take UB minimal, I think I have 30 mega more. But
Pascal,
anyway,
there are some
yeah.
questions. Like what Java versions you're using there for
For all, it's Java 11,
Java 11 and GraalVM 21 or
20.3.2.
okay.
Yeah, GraalVM 16 actually. We haven't really tried that yet with Quarkus. Well, we know the Quarkus runs with Java 16, and I'm pretty sure that it'll run with GraalVM 16 as well. But we haven't added that to our CI pipeline yet. But yeah, we'll do that soon.
Okay. So if we look at the Docker image generated, we can see that I'm almost 70 megabytes for the Quarkus native. Of course, for JVM, I'm 200 and some bytes, and the same for Spring Boot with the 30 megabytes from the jar we saw before. What is interesting here is simply the native. The native one is pretty heavier too. So as I said before, it is due to the Tomcat that is embedded, and we can see it. I think I extracted just there. So Quarkus native, there's just the 70 megabytes from the app. And if we look at the Spring Boot native one, we've got, unfortunately, I can't see it. There. We've got the app packaged that is almost 200 megabytes. So if you
200 megabyte.
Sorry?
200 megabyte.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's because of the Tomcat, I guess.
Wow,
But
that's pretty big.
this is big. So another thing that is really important when trying to be good citizen in the cloud environments is the availability of the application, and finally the startup time is really important, because if you have a replica set of 3 pods, for instance, and 1 4 2 4 3 4, it's really important that your pod comes back quickly. And we will see that we've got huge differences between all flavors of the application. I will just do it via the Docker Compose. So, the first thing we can check is if we do.
We have another question. The question is, which base image is the Spring version using?
The Spring version?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay, so it's whatever default.
Yeah, it's a default set. It's paid to build packs, build out tiny, which builds, and
right.
Unfortunately, I just do it 2 days ago. So.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, yeah, a lot of times you just want to know, you want to use whatever default it is. Yeah, cool.
So, if I do that with Swarm, I think. just show you the Docker Compose file. So there's no special things, just two Postgres database, one for Spring Boot and one for Quarkus, because I auto-generate the database and the schemas are not exactly the same because of the framework. And what I did, just use my image. There's a resource limit for another test, but nothing special. Just say advisor and Prometheus and Grafana to see quickly the difference. So I hope all is up. Okay. And if we go there, so what
Can you
is
make these a
interesting?
little bigger?
Yes,
Or maybe
sorry.
zoom in on them. Yeah.
So we can see at the startup that Spring Boot is consuming CPU, CPU, sorry, and Quarkus JVM 2. This is because of the JVM, and we see that native applications don't consume so much CPUs at startup. The most important resource in Java apps is RAM, because the memory finally is something we never well managed in Java, to be honest. And we can see there, just after a startup, the app is quiet. Spring Boot consumes almost 200 megabytes. Of course, the JVM Quarkus consumes 114. It's big too. And the last, and it's really interesting to see that, is that the Spring Boot native ones is using already more than 100 megabytes, and this is probably due to Tomcat, but this is here.
So that's more than the Quarkus
Yeah, that's what I
JVM
was
one.
gonna say.
I love it.
And Quarkus native is 15 mega. I didn't choose it, but it's...
Yeah, but
guess.
but what Dimitri says is like that's an amazing point. I mean, the Quarkus JVM application starts and consumes the same memory as the Spring Boot native application
Yeah.
after it's taken 10 minutes to compile down to native.
A bit less.
Yes.
Wow, that's
yeah.
wow, yeah.
So and maybe another thing that is really really significant is the time for startup. So we can see the Spring Boot one is probably very, very not fast at all. Why?
What happened? No such thing.
I know why. Okay, so we can see the app starts in 13 seconds, and the JVM is running since 15 seconds. So it takes 15 seconds just to pop a CRUD application with one entity. So, of course, this is the JVM case, and I will compare with the JVM case of Quarkus.
Yeah, there's a small mistake there. Service.
Yeah. And here we are. So the app starts in 4 seconds, 4.5 seconds, and it's the 30% of the start time for Spring Boot. So even we're in a JVM case in the 2 scenario, we can see that Quarkus is starting quick compared to Spring Boot. And I think if I look at the native ones, Quarkus starts usually quickly in 0.30 seconds. And if we look at Spring Boot 1, it starts almost in 1 second. So the proportion is quite the same, and I think there's something that is just there that take a lot of time, and since there's Tomcat embedded behind, I think it's good for the comparing to the 15 seconds. The native brings something, but it's insufficient.
So we have a comment here, if I may, for a second. Based on what we were talking about earlier, that like the JVM application, Quarkus JVM application takes about as much memory as the Spring Boot native. And one of our viewers is pointing out the very important point that the JVM application will have much higher throughput because it will self-optimize with a C2 compiler, while in native you don't have that. So it just seems like unreal that maybe I don't know, maybe it's just this case. Let's not generalize, because this isn't like a scientific study or anything. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think we've said before that the trade-off here is if you really need the throughput, then you want to use a standard JVM, you've got to give it time to do all the optimizations and things like that. But if you don't need your application to run that long, or and stuff that's important, then use Quarkus, because how many orders of magnitude is it faster? I was trying to figure that one out.
Well, it seems here the pattern is 3 times faster, both in VM and native mode. But the argument there is, if memory is your thing that concerns you, you could just as well stay with Quarkus JVM and be over, but sure, you could do all the transition all the way.
Something I learned this week is that GraalVM manages the memory not like the JVM, but there's many optimization too. So I think it will be quite the same in JVM or GraalVM if you decide to limit your resources.
Pascal, can I ask you? I think you've already customers using Quarkus on production, right? What's their preference? What do they do?
So I have a customer that implement Quarkus in all its technical components now, and developers had to learn, but since they understand the mindset and and they go on board. Finally, they really enjoy it since they use it because of basically before that they used Spring Boot for all their backend, and since we tried Quarkus with some backends and some technical backends for the start, many people, many developers was interested in that, and finally the development mode, the hot replace, something that could be done more or less in Spring Boot, but less efficient. They really enjoy the way they can develop with Quarkus. So I think it's okay for all the backend that need to manage resource well. Like I say, for instance, this customer is on Swarm and Swarm on premise, and they got limited resources. So with limited resources, you finally you think about, okay, how can I use less memory? How can I have small deployment that pop quickly? And finally, Quarkus is excellent for that.
I think that's a common theme. And before you continue, that people come for performance to Quarkus, but they stay for all the other things, like development mode. And
that's
so
what I was gonna say as well, because we have a lot. I've seen plenty of people come to our chat or our email and ask and say, like, you know what, I've used Quarkus as a developer, I love it, it's great, but help me. How can I sell this, quote unquote, sell it to the team, to the company? How can I convince them to like move over to Quarkus? So the way I understand that you're pitching this is like, if you want to reduce your cloud bill, you really have to move off Spring Boot because it's really heavy. But then because the mindset for developing applications is similar, like as it is with Java EE and Spring, then developers can really pick up Quarkus really easily. And then because of all these awesome other developer related features, they really enjoy it, right? So is that like an accurate summary?
Yeah, it's an accurate summary. Finally, the developers love the way Quarkus works, and so finally they come from the performance effective, but finally with dev mode, with continuous testing, etc. I think they are convinced by all the stack finally.
Cool.
And maybe I have another demonstration.
Yeah, go for it.
So we'll remove that. And just to illustrate what I said before about Quarkus in a Kubernetes environment, in the blog post, I was talking about K3D, which is a distribution of Rancher with Kubernetes in Docker. But I have a lot of issues since the version 4, I think, on macOS, with Docker VM on macOS. So I decided to go to Quarkus to use the successor of Minikube finally. And okay, brief. There's no issue with kind. Just if you read the blog that is just there, it's quite the same measures, but with another orchestrator, since K3D is suffering some issues. So, what consists this test? Simply, we will create a cluster, Kubernetes cluster in Docker with kind. We will load our image in cluster, and we will deploy all the different flavors of our app, and because we're static, we kill them every 5th second. Finally, we want to see if our app crash every 5-10 seconds. What is the behavior, and is this always available or not? So okay. So the test is approximately 1 minute. 2, because of the sleep there.
While the test is doing its stuff, do you have any comment about the programming model of Quarkus? You've used everything. You've used Java EE, Spring. How the transition looks like for a Spring developer?
I think there's a lot of extensions that are really interesting. I begin with Quarkus with Panache directly, and I think this framework is really easy to use and bring a lot of things. I think we, as a J2E developer, as a Spring Boot developer, we manage transactions a lot of time. Big part of our time is consecrated to manage transactions, etc. And finally, with Panache, I find the way that it manages by itself some little things like the collections, etc. It helps you a lot to not overbrain around these questions. And I think to the extensions model is really good, because if you don't need something, you don't pull it in your Maven dependencies. And unlike Spring Boot, that's my opinion, unlike Spring Boot, when you pull an extension, you don't pull the world. And this is really appreciated. So I think the model, the programming model too, with some extensions like Mutiny, like the reactive stacks, like the ability to do blocking or non-blocking, is really it's really simple. You wrote I think 10 or 20 lines of code, and you've got your controller, your entities, and the whole path is already there. So I think you can concentrate in the business logic and not especially lose your time with some technical considerations that, okay, I'm an old G2E developer, so I love these issues, I love these problems, but this is really appreciated to not lose your time with that. finally.
Yeah, boilerplate code. And from other people, we've seen that they report about 30% reduction in code needed to do the same stuff. So would you say this is correct from your point of view?
I think just the learning path for Spring Boot or J2E developers is a little bit hard at the start, because they must read and they don't like read. All solutions are not over Stack Overflow, sorry. So okay, it's a little bit hard at the start, but once the learning path is integrated, finally they are happy. And when you have a problem, and I told that with my customers too, when you've got issues in Quarkus, something you can't do, you don't understand, the community is really reactive and helpful. Finally, when you've got an issue for one day, you have always interlocutors that will help you with your issue and your misunderstanding, and it's really, really, really a strong point of this community.
Good stuff.
So results are there. So we can see that Spring Boot is, of course, limited, because I said I kill the pod every 6 seconds. I was sympathetic. So finally, Spring Boot, we saw earlier that it took 7 or 8 seconds. So if I kill every 6 seconds, there's no change for Spring Boot. You can see there we've got a 65% of success for Quarkus JVM. That's a good point, because it starts on 3-4 seconds. And Spring Boot Native and Quarkus Graal VM tends to have the same result, and it's logic for me. It's logical. So okay, what can we say with that? We can say finally the availability of our application, although it can crash, it is really present, and we've got there, and it's killed me to see that, but we've got 2 good citizens in terms of availability for CNA apps. But remember that Spring Boot Native consumes more memory at start, and finally I've got, and we will not have the time, but I've got a comparison where I try to put I try to put more and more pods, and finally we can see, and I think it's there, yeah. We can see we cannot
mind making it a little bigger, because it's hard to see. Okay, great, yeah, excellent.
We can see that the max running containers in parallels with a machine of 8 GB of RAM is only 20 for Spring Boot. And if you read the post, you will see the 20 containers will suffer. Almost 40 for Quarkus JVM. I think I can push to 40. And for the Quarkus Native one, we're on 300. I tested with Spring Boot Native, and since Spring Boot Native is consuming more than 100 megabyte of RAM, finally you will be locked at a level of 40, almost 40, I think. So, okay, it's a good citizen in terms of availability, but in terms of resource management, it's not the perfect world.
Yeah, I think it's the message is clear. It's more you can stuff more stuff in the same space, or more stuff for your buck, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So do you have any like idea like how much like money people were saving like when they're moving from Spring Boot to Quarkus? Like not in absolute figures, obviously, but if you have any like idea, like let's say a customer moved from Spring Boot to Quarkus, they saved, I don't know, like 20% on their cloud bill or something like that.
I did not study that for now, but since I have some Spring Boot application in clouds, I will answer. I will answer this quickly, I think.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, it will be a good metric, I think.
Yeah, well, maybe anybody who's listening could let us know if they've got some good stories of what Quarkus has given them. And maybe the downside as well, whether there's anything that they figure they lose by switching over to native.
Also, we have another point here.
Yep.
Jorge is mentioning that that by using Quarkus, they were able to forego moving into retooling and rebasing everything onto Go, right? And this is something we have talked about before. We haven't emphasized it that much, but yeah, because Quarkus like has such a small runtime such great runtime performance, a lot of teams have been able to like stick to the JVM ecosystem, which is huge, right? For like a company that has all these developers that know and are really productive in JVM, it'd be a massive change to have to go to Go, right? I mean, I know I wouldn't want to do that.
There's a lot of enterprise stuck in the JVM world, and I think it's not a good choice to not use Quarkus because you're on the JVM mode. The framework, and we saw that earlier, is still good in JVM mode and better than Spring Boot. I will have no friend now. But anyway.
Now you'll be the cool kid. You'll be one of the first movers.
But anyway, I think you can use Quarkus in JVM mode. It's still interesting, and it brings a lot of things, and it helps developer really. I really think this. And finally, if in 2 years your enterprise decide to go and forgot the JVM, and it will be the case. I think 5 years we will have less JVM mode in production world. So if one day the enterprise decide to move to native build, finally you will be very happy to already have a framework that allows you to go to the native build really quickly.
That's definitely
you have the option, definitely. And just to throw a plug there, some people are writing Kubernetes operators with Quarkus, something that traditionally has been done with Golang. And there's also a team somewhere nearby that works on a operator SDK, Java operator SDK for that purpose.
Yeah, we'll bring them on. I've already reached out to Chris, and he'll be on sometime. Not like right now, but sometime in the immediate future. And also, I would like to ask Jorge to reach out to us on our Zulip chat, because we'd definitely like to hear about his use case where they didn't go and they stayed on Quarkus. We definitely want to hear about that. And maybe if if the corporation wants to share, then we could have them on Insights as well. Just like Pascal is sharing his very, very useful feedback. Because a thing that we really want here is like we want real user feedback. So like it's great, like we have like Quarkus members come on and do their stuff. That's cool, but we also really want to have like real user feedback, right? Super, super important.
Yeah.
And
You got to show that comment too.
yeah, wow, okay. So let's read this. Jorge says Visa only gave us maximum 1 second per transaction, and our Quarkus application is able to process every transaction for average of around 300 milliseconds. Wow, that's like I said before. Please reach out to us on our Zulip chat or Quarkus Dev mailing list so we can talk about this if you want to share. Because like Pascal's doing an awesome job sharing the Quarkus love. We want to give everybody the ability who wants to share that love to do that. Go ahead, Pascal.
Okay. Maybe what I have. So. Bad lines.
So someone wants to see. Bill wants to see your code, Pascal. He's asking if it's
linked
available.
from the blog, no?
To see the code?
Yeah,
Yes.
if it's available on GitHub.
It's available on this branch, and the repository is just
Oh, so it's on the blog
at the
post.
beginning at the blog.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. Thank you.
Just don't take master because it will be removed. But okay. Another thing is
And by the way, Pascal, any feedback you may have for things you wanna see in Quarkus or fix or new stuff. Or everything is perfect.
No. There's often little points like we want cassette, there's some little things that come from GraalVM. There's some little things that are here, and we discussed about that for optimization purposes. And sometimes it's difficult to integrate it in the mindset, but we work on that. And there's little point where people just lose time, and I don't know if it's the documentation that is not clear for some features, but when I take the time to go back and read the doc with customers, so we finally found what we were looking for. So I think there's no perfect framework and there's still improvements, but for the moment, the main customer that uses Quarkus actually currently, sorry, is really happy with that, but he just write me, I've got a problem with time zone. So there's some small problems.
Small stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an extension in particular you're missing?
For
Quarkus, an extension?
Quarkus like some database that you're using that we don't have an extension for or something like that?
No, Not really. I don't think so. I saw and I didn't try it yet, but I see that reactive Postgres is in the extensions list, so I must try it. But no, I don't see something really missing for now.
Cool.
For our use case, I think it's complete. So I think I have something like run test. Okay. By way. So we will just do the reactive tests just to see it works. So what I do in this script, you can see there's the four endpoint of our containers, and we call the same API path because this is the same code. And just in the reactive one endpoint, it is something that we should not do, but it does server-side events and returns every X millis a new random next int, etc., etc. And it's big. It's a big computing thing, finally. And if we compare the CPU and the RAM like we did before, we can see Spring Boot is always more high than others, but it's very interesting to see that if we do the ratio between this point and this point, finally it's quite the same ratio between there and there, but there we are really, really, really low, and we go up to 5% for Spring Boot native. Quarkus native is a little bit higher than Spring Boot native, and JVM is, of course, higher too. So what surprised me at the beginning of this test is that we see that the RAM, the memory for Quarkus native is really, there's a big gap between, we did nothing there, but there we are approximately 150, and it's 3 times the RAM, the memory we used at the beginning. And then Spring Boot native, there's no big gap, but it's quite higher. I think it's just normal. And I didn't manage all the stuff we can manage with the memory and GraalVM. Sorry. I think I can tune it to do this more efficient. But anyway, the thing is that we see there that almost all the containers are equivalent in terms of memory, except for Spring Boot that is higher. And I think it's interesting to see that even if I didn't do nothing on the JVM version of Quarkus, the memory is better managed, I think. because I'm in the GVM.
Nice. Yeah, these are nice graphs. Cool. Cool.
Yep. And it's 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're on the top of the hour.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I guess unless Pascal, do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
No, I think it's all. That's all.
That was great. Thanks a lot for all the effort you put into the demos and the blog post. Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, it seems like users appreciate it as well. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. Yeah, this was I think enlightening for a lot of users. Hopefully, to convince them to get their companies to use Quarkus as well. Because yeah, as we've seen, individual developers love Quarkus, but yeah, companies move a little slower, so they need some encouragement.
Well, as long as you get banks using in production, I think
Yeah,
that's pretty convincing argument. So
absolutely.
all
Excellent.
right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pascal. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye bye.